Hi there everybody, my name is Fairy or the Hedge Witch, and welcome back to my sacred space. I appreciate everybody's patience over the last month or so. If you watched my most recent-ish update video, I mentioned that I was taking a winter class, and that ended up being a lot of effort. It took a lot of time and energy and all that, so unfortunately, YouTube kind of got moved to the back burner, but winter is finally over. It was like 3.5 weeks of just absolute hell. So I'm really happy to have the energy and time to get on here and talk to you guys. I'm planning to do a little update video as well, so I'm not gonna go into too much stuff here, so let's just get into the topic of today's video. So this isn't really something I had ever planned on doing a video on. I thought that I had kind of covered this enough in, I think it was the very first video that I ever uploaded on my channel. It's titled something along the lines of my practice and why I no longer practice Wicca or something. But this has actually been a topic requested by multiple people, so I figured I may as well follow through with that and just make a quick video talking about what it means to me to be a hedge witch. So starting off, typically the hedge witch path is a solitary path. So of course, with everybody, practicing separately and doing their own things, people that identify as hedge witches may have very different practices from one another. So my purpose of this video is not to give like a comprehensive guide of everything that every single hedge witch does in their practice. That's just simply not possible. I'm going to be focusing more on what I do in my practice and what my title of hedge witch means to me personally. So it is definitely possible for a person who identifies as a hedge witch to be part of a coven. It's not really like a set in stone rule that you have to be a solitary practitioner, but in general, I would say most people would identify as solitary. So backing up a little bit and talking about the history of the term hedge witch, from my personal understanding and the research that I've done in the past, it comes from long ago when there was like a hedgerow surrounding most towns, and somebody who was a hedge witch would be practicing and living beyond the hedge. So they were outside of the limits of the town, probably lived in the woods. And that's just kind of the whole thing, is that they were past the hedge of the town. That history, I think, is also why a lot of hedge witches are solitary, because just by the nature of that, living outside of the town and living in your own little house in the woods, typically there's not going to be a lot of people around, so solitary path. So for me personally, something that I incorporate into my hedge witchery, and I think a lot of other hedge witches do as well, is traditional witchcraft. I don't really follow like a super duper traditional witchcraft path, if that makes sense, but I do definitely take elements from that practice and incorporate it into my practice, and that's why I identify as a hedge witch and not a traditional witch. So kind of putting these terms together, for me what that looks like is I focus a lot in my practice on working with things that are local to me. So this includes plants, animals, minerals, rocks, and it also includes local land spirits and other things like that. I do still use herbs and crystals and things like that that are not from my immediate area, but in my practice I've found that the things that have the strongest impact and the most meaning to me are the things that are local to me. And I think that mindset is very much a traditional witchcraft mindset. I'm not sure if all hedge witches would identify that way, but that is a part of my practice as a hedge witch. Going off of that, I think for a lot of hedge witches, there is less of a focus on deity work and more of a focus on nature, and possibly like local spirits and other like nature spirits and stuff, as opposed to deity worship. And this is because most hedge witches focus most of their practice on the natural world, and like it's just a very nature-based path. And I know that like by definition paganism is an earth-based religion, so I would say probably that most people who are pagan or witches would say that they care about nature a lot. But with hedge witchcraft, it is pretty much like the top thing that you're focusing on is your personal relationship with nature and the natural world. For a lot of us, that means home gardening. I keep a lot of houseplants. They're actually like literally right behind where I film. I also really enjoy going on nature walks and picking up, you know, things that have fallen off of trees or other plants, taking clippings of them as long as it's okay with the local land spirits. And as such, being in tune with nature means that for me, following the wheel of the year is really important. And for me, it's less from a ritual standpoint, I guess, and more from a like keeping myself in tune with the world around me kind of thing. I think in some other witchcraft paths, Sabbats and the wheel of the year is more of I'm not sure if everybody watching this is familiar with this term, but high magic or ceremonial magic. It's more of that kind of thing where you focus more on the deity worship aspect, and it's more, I don't want to say performative because that's not necessarily what it is, but it's ceremonial magic. It is more of a ceremony rather than like a personal, you know, spell work kind of thing. Hey there, so I'm editing this video right now. I was really struggling to like articulate what I was trying to say on this day while I was filming this video, so I just wanted to clarify that with the Sabbats, if you guys didn't know for some reason, there is a like pagan mythology that is associated with the Sabbats involving like the Oak King and the Holly King, and the goddess and everything, and like this whole cycle that happens. And every time the wheel turns and we go to a new Sabbat, it goes to a new stage of this, like, it's basically like a life cycle kind of thing. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it being more of a ritualistic, high magic sort of thing, where you're interacting more with the mythology rather than your own personal relationship with how the seasons are changing. And that's kind of what I focus on, is that relationship with nature itself. But for me, following the wheel of the year is more of a way for me to recognize the ways in which nature around me is changing, and as the seasons move and all that, I'm able to tune my energy into that of the world around me and use it for my best self. But yeah, something I've been really wanting to do on this channel is do more of the Sabbat vlogs. I've done one, I did it for Lunasa last year, and I really enjoyed doing it. And if you go back to that vlog, you'll see that it's more of a personal, like, hey, this is what the world is like right now in, you know, in nature, so I'm gonna celebrate that by making bread, as opposed to any kind of deity worship. I do have a deity that I follow, I suppose, and I do ask for help. But for me, my relationship with deities is a little bit different than I think most people's. That's a little bit different of a topic than what we're on right now, so I'm not going to focus on that too much. But to me, the most important part of my craft is the nature and spirit focus and not the deity focus, even though I do have a deity. I have several statues of her on my altar. And tied in with this as well, for a lot of hedge witches, there is a really big focus on herbalism and using herbs in your craft. This is something that I've always felt drawn to, just in life in general. I'm sure a lot of us who are on this witchcraft path can relate to, you know, making weird like potions when you're a kid, and just picking up and really attaching your energy to some weird shit that you found in the forest, like a very specific pine cone or something like that. So that's just kind of always been something that I've been attached to. So when I started getting into witchcraft, I was really interested in using herbs in my craft, and that's something that I have focused on even more. Something that other hedge witches and traditional witches might do that I do a little bit less is some ancestor work. Because the traditional witchcraft path has a lot to do with spirit work, a lot of people will also call on their ancestors and things like that, people who are related to them who have passed over from, you know, either recently or very long ago, and they'll work with those spirits to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. That's not really something I have any experience with personally, but I think a lot of other people that are on this path, that's something that they may do. A lot of focus in hedge witchery as well is in the hearth and home. It's a bit different from cottage witchcraft because this isn't like the main part of hedge witchcraft. As I've said a few times, that's more of the nature focus thing, but there is still a little bit of a focus on the home and just like home magic in general. Some people do a lot of cooking magic. This is something that I've really latched onto recently. If you guys watched my last video, I posted something about doing some home protection and stuff like that. So that's been really fun for me lately. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that I think a lot of different witchcraft paths do, but this has really been a focus in my hedge witchcraft since I started identifying as a hedge witch, and that is the idea of finding magic in the mundane. And for like a too long didn't read short definition of, you know, what that kind of means to me, it would be romanticizing all the little things that you're doing in your life and making them feel magical. This can look really different depending on what it is. You can literally turn something that you're doing into a spell with intention, or you can, how do I say this? Some people talk about things like stirring your coffee a certain number of times to add intention to it, or when I water my plants, I make sure that I have intention, you know, for them to grow and thrive and things like that. But I'm talking more about like when you make your bed with fresh sheets and you just appreciate how cozy it is and how warm it is and how nice they smell, and really trying to focus on like that moment in time. This might not make sense to everybody, and that's fine. You can really view this in either of the two ways I've talked about, or both. I think most people, again, talk about this in like the actual spell kind of way, but I try to incorporate both of these ideas into my day-to-day practice. And yeah, in general, I think that's a fair summation of my my craft. So that's what that looks like for me. I hope this video was helpful to those of you who asked for this. I'm really interested if anybody else who follows me on YouTube is a hedge witch as well and would like to kind of share what their practice looks like. I'd be really interested to hear if you guys have any other focuses in your craft that I didn't talk about. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys so much. As I'm recording this, I have just hit 500 subscribers, which is super exciting, and I really appreciate it. So thank you all so much. I'm also hoping to do a vlog for Ostara, so we'll see how that goes. I have a few plans for that holiday, but we'll see where we end up with like my job and the spring semester and all that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!